So let's get right into it. Imagine for a second you've filled out all the forms, you followed every single rule for a government program that's supposed to help you, and then you just hear nothing. Crickets. You're left completely in the dark. Well, that's exactly what's happening to over 1 million student loan borrowers in the US right now. They're stuck in this massive administrative limbo, and we're going to figure out why.
To really get what's going on here, you have to understand the human side of this. Because behind all the paperwork and the data and the processing times, there are real people whose financial futures are just hanging in the balance.
And this is the number at the heart of it all. Over 1 million applications for what are called income-driven repayment plans, or IDR plans. They're just sitting there, completely unprocessed. And you got to remember, every single digit in that number is a person, waiting, sometimes for months on end, for an answer that could literally change their entire monthly budget.
Now, to put this whole backlog into perspective, it's a piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. We're talking about $1.7 trillion in total student debt held by more than 42 million Americans. So when you see a number that big, you realize the stakes for getting these repayment plans right are just enormous.
Okay, so what does this backlog actually look like when you break it down? Well, the data tells a pretty complicated story. It's a story of some slow progress on one front and a growing crisis on another.
So, at first glance, you might look at this chart and think, hey, good news. And you're not wrong. The main backlog for these IDR plans is down from a crazy high of 2 million applications back in the spring. That is progress. But it still leaves over 1 million people waiting. The line is moving, sure, but it is moving painfully slow.
And here's where the story gets more worrying. While that main backlog is shrinking, the wait list for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, that's for people like teachers, firefighters, public servants, it's actually growing. It's gone from under 50,000 in April to almost 75,000 now. So for this really key group of borrowers, the problem is literally getting worse by the day.
So what does this pace actually mean for people? Well, do the math. Even if not a single new application was filed starting today, it would still take over 13 months just to clear the pile of applications we have right now. That's more than a year of waiting for people who need this help today.
And all of this leads to the one big question, right? How on earth did we get here? Well, as it turns out, the answer completely depends on who you ask. It has become a classic case of political finger-pointing, with two totally conflicting stories. I mean, think about it. A system that was designed to help people has turned into this source of incredible frustration. So let's break down the two competing explanations for why this is happening.
Okay, so on one side, you have the current Department of Education. They're pointing the finger at the previous administration, saying they just failed to process applications for months. They claim this created a hidden Biden backlog that was used to cover up how many people were defaulting on their loans. But on the other side, you have critics like finance expert Michael Ryan, who say, no. He argues the current administration created this mess all by themselves when they froze all applications for, quote, system updates. His take? They threw the baby out with the bathwater and ended up blocking perfectly good programs in the process.
And listen, this isn't just a political shouting match, it's now a legal one. The American Federation of Teachers has actually filed a lawsuit over all of this. Their argument is pretty straightforward. These delays aren't just some inconvenience. They say it's actually denying borrowers their statutory rights, the rights they have by law to affordable payments and the debt forgiveness they were promised.
So while Washington is busy pointing fingers and lawyers are filing suits, what does it all mean for the people who are actually caught in the middle of this mess? Well, financial experts are painting a very clear picture of the fallout. Michael Ryan, who we heard from earlier, puts it really bluntly. He says the people being hurt the most are the ones who did everything right. They played by the rules, they took on public service jobs, they enrolled in the plans they were told to enroll in, all because they trusted the system. And now, he says, that trust is being shattered by administrative incompetence and political gamesmanship.
Andrew Powers from the Powers Financial Group, he adds another really important layer to this. He points out that people didn't just borrow this money in a vacuum. They took out these loans with the understanding that these specific repayment options would be there for them down the road. So when you freeze the system halfway through, it feels to a lot of people like a total bait and switch.
And right here, financial literacy instructor Alex Bean really connects the dots for us. He explains that all these political and legal fights over whether some of these loan programs are even valid, well, they have a direct, real-world effect. They force the entire processing system to just stop and start again and again, which has created the exact backlog we're talking about today.
So, All of this brings us to the final and most critical question. With all this chaos and confusion, what happens next? What's the road ahead for the more than 1 million Americans who are still waiting for an answer?
Well, the consensus from the experts, and Alex Bean captures it perfectly here, is unfortunately pretty bleak. In the short term, it doesn't really matter who wins the political argument. It doesn't matter who wins the court case. For the actual borrowers who are stuck in this system, the most likely outcome is they're just going to have to wait longer.
And that really leaves us with this fundamental question, doesn't it? This whole situation is just a stark reminder of what happens when a system that's supposed to help people gets caught in a collision between bureaucracy and politics. And for the millions of people who are depending on that system, finding a clear path forward is anything but simple. That's the real challenge that remains.